Welcome everybody. Really honoured to be here, sort of hosting the first conversation today. My name's Dr. Liz Sterling from Leeds Beckett University, and that's all I'm going to say about myself because we're here to talk to these two artists. So the sort of theme was art and life as an artist, and we've got Siddiqa Juma and Lord Richard MacLeod. So
thank you.
You have the longer name as we discussed. So I'm just going to
Oh, that's the short version, though.
read out a little bio of each person so that you know a bit more about them before we then find out so much more about your work and your lives and all the amazing things that you do. I don't really know quite how you fit all that in, but we'll find out maybe. Okay, and they both have work being displayed in the marquee, so it's really beautiful to be able to see close up the kind of paintings and the way they're made, and very sumptuous experience, so thank you. So Siddiqa Juma is a critically acclaimed, multi-award winning contemporary Islamic artist, graphic designer and publisher, best known for her pieces Diversity and the groundbreaking Make Your Mark, which have each captured the hearts and minds of global audiences. Siddiqa believes the purpose of her art is to unite people, regardless of creed or colour. Siddiqa has exhibited globally, and her works are owned by royal families, eminent politicians, and hang in some of the most recognisable establishments in the UK and abroad. So, fantastic.
And there's some
Welcome.
in my house as well.
Richard, I'm going to call you Richard.
Please.
As a child, Richard studied Arabic calligraphy in Saudi Arabia under the auspices of his father, himself an accomplished artist and calligrapher who fervently encouraged his son's growing interests. Now, as well as being an Islamic Arabic calligrapher, Richard is an architect, a photographer, a filmmaker, a poet, and a writer. He has a BSc in architecture and an MA in film and documentary making. He has won awards for his photography and filmmaking. So, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
MashaAllah.
So first, I was just really interested for you to talk a little bit about the work that you've brought here to be exhibited as a bit of an introduction to what you're doing, and for everyone to know a bit more about maybe how you've made them and what's inspired that work. So,
No, please. Beauty before age.
Most of my work is about unity and bringing people together. Not only from the Ummah, meaning the brethren, the Muslim communities, but also the wider communities as well. And I mean, I've been very, very lucky with the fact that actually the biggest thing that I am particularly proud of and happy with is the fact that my art has started conversations. And it's, even people who've bought my work and hanging in their homes, what they've said is that people want to know a deeper meaning, want to kind of find out what the inspiration. This is the big question that I get asked all the time. What's your inspiration? But my inspiration is just us. It's just what's around us, and just looking deeper at the everyday. And what kind of really, really inspires me is that when we go deep into stopping and not taking what's being said out there, but being able to see it from yourself, we will see the beauty. Yeah. So even when atrocities take place, something good comes out of it, because what happens is that it brings the common man, I don't like that word, but it brings us together. It makes us address the fact that things are being done and stories are being told by others, whereas these stories need to be told by us. And that's what I think art should do. And a lot of my work is about that. It is about uniting. It is about looking deeper. It is about looking outward as well as inward. Looking outward and seeing that there is beauty out there, and there is so much that we need to be thankful for. Looking inward in terms of, how can I grow? What can I do that will make this place more beautiful? And I think I'm hoping that that's what my art does, and I'm sure that art in general should do that. It should be the story that we can tell.
And it's so interesting from our conversation, Richard, just earlier, and then looking at your work, how there's lots of commonalities across both your work and what you want it to sort of say or do, and also what you use as that sort of inspiration. Do you want to respond to?
I mean, what I echo what not Auntie Siddiqa said, and the thing is, Siddiqa and I, and we have a third person, Samir Malik, who's a very awesome esteemed artist. We kind of agree on this, and that's actually what brings us together. We almost have a pact now. Everywhere we go, we'll bring someone else, because we agree on this commonality. We agree on the message that we want to send to the world: peace, love, and harmony, in a way. And we all express it one way or another. Obviously, because of different backgrounds, we have different experiences coming in, and then different expressions coming out. But the art is skill, but it's a tool. And we are part of this world. We are part of the culture, wherever we are and wherever we came from and we would like to be. So we use the art the skills at our disposal to express that, to express how love is everywhere, in a sense, and not just Hugh Grant and Liz Hurley. Love is everybody. Love is around us. Love actually is everywhere. And that's what I would like always to express, and the harmony that we can have together. So I created the first script, the first British script in history, to present that, to represent that we as a dual identity, it's not an isolated island, which then God knows what happened there. No, we are part of the world and part of a journey that we can all live together, and we can have the prosperity together, despite of our differences. One of the major success elements of business, when you go into a new venture, don't look at what you can't control, look what's unstable, even if it was a couple elements, and then build on. So it's always about how, and I worked with the community for a long time, being an asylum seeker myself. We always look for the common grounds and how can we work from there. And the differences, we can coexist one with another. And I think that's the message we always have in our work, and I think most of the audience agree with this. We have lots of commonality, which we can, and values. We can all agree.
Art has a particularly unique way of doing that, because obviously music is another kind of form, isn't it? That's very much about that. What was it that drew you to sort of art, and particularly, I suppose, painting, and some of the other forms you use to express that? What do you feel that is? It also your own enjoyment and love of the process?
It's a language that can be perceived in non-threatening way. So it already has an open arms, in a sense, in welcoming when you go through the message through the art. So when you talk about peace, if you grow a beard and have a short dress and what have you, and say I'm an imam and I'm talking about peace, you straight away gonna have some prejudice. But when you talk about peace with art, you cross actually the boundaries. One of the blessings that I have from the Lord on me, that my artwork, although sometimes it's about Quranic verses, but I get atheists to actually buy the artwork because it's beautiful. Some of the events I participate, sometimes I just write people's names, and people have that artwork because it's their name, and they take it away, and I meet them in different events 2 or 3 years later, and say, I still have that piece of art. And that piece of art is Arabic, and have some connotation with the Islam as being very close to Arabic. So that's in a way I express that Islam, I refuse to be hijacked by extremists
Yes.
and to be dominated by whatever tag they put on themselves and say, this is Islam. I refuse that. And I present a version that I believe in. This is Islam. And we don't go around kill people. We talk about love. There's lots of commonalities that we can agree on many values. And that's what I hope that my artwork brings in. Like diversity, for example. We employ color to represent different people, different color, different creed, and say we can all be in harmony together.
I was thinking just when you were talking, Siddiqa, about your wall that you talked about in
Yes.
London, you maybe tell people about that experience, which isn't only the colour that represents that, but actually the people, other people are taking part in that.
Exactly. Well, when the president across the pond was trying to build walls to divide us, I worked with an organization called Masterpiece, who were talking about using the existing walls, because walls, in effect, they're put up to kind of divide us, you know, the inside and the outside. Well, if we can't do anything about that, what we can do is actually beautify it. So near London Bridge, and it's interesting, the fact that actually this happened soon after the bombing near, you know, the London Bridge and so on. There's a wall just by the side of Shakespeare Globe, and I was invited to try and bring people together to create something. So I basically painted a meadow and invited people to put daubs of paint to represent themselves and for them to be the flowers that make the meadow beautiful. And the response was unbelievable. And that area there's a lot of tourists. And funnily enough, there's a lot of American tourists who just came and embraced us and said that this is amazing. This is exactly the message that we want to give. And that is that we will not let walls divide us. If we cannot bring them down, we will turn them into something else. We'll turn them into message of peace, message of beauty. And I think this is the beauty of, in my case, a lot of my work is about unity, as I've said to you before, but it's also about inviting people to be part of that painting, to be part of the story. And you know, it's empowering when they can hold a paintbrush. I've had so many people who said, yeah, but I can't paint. You can paint. That is, like Richard was saying, it's that, you know, painting is a tool. Yeah, you can give that message, you can show solidarity in so many different ways. And if you can do it in a creative way, it somehow brings people together. It is like Richard was saying, it's non-threatening. You know, what's a paint going to do? It's not going to blow you up.
But actually,
you know?
it's transforming, isn't it?
It's
And
transforming.
It unlocks things in us through that. We were talking
It
about
is.
the making,
Yeah.
it's so important.
Yeah.
What that allows you or releases in you that's not always very much thinking intellectually with the sort of, or the words and information in the world, but how ourselves and our bodies can express things.
You tend to, I mean, you know, when you have a paint brush in your hand and you're going to put a daub of paint or whatever it is, it just creates some kind of a thing in your head that tells you that, well, all the rest is really, it's superfluous.
I wanted to ask a bit of that because you talk about the way you paint, and obviously the way that you paint also, it takes a long time often with your paintings, and also you talked a bit about a meditative state. Does that sort of happen when you're painting?
Well, there's a series that I did, and it's called the Shahada, meaning there is La ilaha illallah, there is no God but God. And that to me is one of, if not, I would say it is, the most significant statement that one can make, and that all this, everything else is not your God. And this God, whatever it is that God is a God of all of us. There is no God but God. And the way I've done it is repeat that statement thousands and thousands of times. And you know, my children always joke, you know, that when one of the things that we get asked, and Richard will agree with this, you know, how long did this painting take you, right? And when you ask my children that, when they were sort of younger, or they still do, by the way, you know, how long did this take your mum to do? Their answer is, how long did mum not do the housework? Or mum didn't cook, or mum didn't, because, I mean, especially with work like that, it becomes between you and that canvas. It's like prayer bit, you know, the tasbih we call it, you know, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. And you're writing, and you're writing, and you lose yourself. It's like, I think the only way, not that I've ever danced like a dervish, but the only thing that I could describe it, I think I would feel, is like, you know, getting into that circle, and you're just in it, and in it, and in it. And it's a very, very beautiful state. So it's quite meditative. Everyone should experience it. It's a form. It's in a way, I wouldn't say that this is my Islamic faith. This is spiritual rather than a man-made name that I could give: Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, whatever it is. It is that relationship between you and your maker. That's and that, to me, that is, it's quite a, on my part, it's quite a selfish thing. I love it.
And hopefully, when you come out of that state, your children have cleaned the house.
It's highly, highly unlikely. It's highly unlikely. But I'm training my husband to do that.
If I can comment on the walls.
Yes, go on, yeah.
The thing is, when we build walls, it's mainly to organize and protect. This is why we build walls in the first place. The problem is, it's creating the other on the other side. And that's the problem. And then the other, because of the ignorance, it creates the fear, which then end up being with the hostility, because I don't know the other person. So straight away on the back foot, try to defend and even attack is the best form of defense. And that's sometimes the problem with the wars. And that's why I love your work, because it brought back the original focus on the wall. It's to protect and organize, but it never to actually create an other person. We all have the right to privacy in family life and what have you, but it's not ever meant to be creating the other and being hostile about them.
Yes.
So I love this, what you did with the wall. When you talked about meditation, I think every artist, I think everybody, there's an artist in everybody.
Yes.
And art is never the form of painting. It could be your cooking. You know, mom is very good cook eventually. She never was on my days, but eventually became really good cook. And that in itself is an art. It could be the way you dress, the way you talk. A lawyer could be an artist. And I did law for a while because I love the wordsmith. But art in itself, when you're in that phase, when you're in that solitude with art, I find it very healing.
Yes.
I went through hard patches in my life, and I went to psychologists and tried to work with them and therapists, and they couldn't give me medication. Nothing worked with me. But what worked is to go and create art, and that was in the form of photography, filmmaking. It took me ages, and painting. That's what really myself is helped me. I don't believe in medication to a certain limit. I believe in art being therapeutic. And that's how I find it in terms.
And so I was thinking, because looking at your the sort of beautiful paintings, and particularly the Arabic script, which is so precise in many ways, but also so kind of poetic, lyrical. I was wanting to ask you a bit more about how you do it, or are you again in a kind of zone when you're sort of doing that, or does it depend on what you're using? Or
focus is important, obviously. So when you are in that zone, you need a bit of kind of solitude to be able to get into the zone, whatever gets you, whether in the background to wash out the white noise, music, Quran, whatever. to get you focused. But once you get to that state and you start producing, and that with anybody who actually work and produce things. But I had the conversation earlier with Jamila, and she was asking me, how long does it take you, and how much do you go with this? And I said, I don't know. Being a doctor, you know, you spend a certain amount of years, I'm not saying how long,
Quite a lot, quite a few.
Too long.
to actually reach that level. And now when you create an artwork, was it born now, or was it in the making all that time? What I find is everything we make is actually born from our experiences, our feelings, our emotion. Everything we did, a movie we watch, a song we listen to, a lecturer we listen, it all goes in to create that. So when you say I made this in 2 days, is it? The skill itself took a few years. The experience took all a lifetime to create. So this is as long as it takes to create that. But to get to that level of precision, if you like, well, you know, it's a skill, and it's more motor skills that you have to develop over the years by just practice and repetition.
Yeah, I was sort of interested because I wondered if, obviously you learned calligraphy with your father, and then did you just do other things, and it's something that you kind of returned to and started doing, and it sort of brings you back to that relationship with
It was a conspiracy. I had no chance whatsoever. We had, we used to take part of the curriculum to learn calligraphy in the school. So I had no chance. And obviously, I didn't like sport, because I always had end up the football in my face. I just didn't know how to play football. So I did art since I was a kid. My father also was a calligrapher, so I spent a lot of years just watching him doing the calligraphy. And anybody who would do calligraphy or art, part of developing the skills is actually just watching. Yeah. And I was just mesmerized, was watching that, how we do it. He's writing. I still can't do that. When I just sit down and writing, I have to get myself in a state where I have to write. But yes, I end up doing lots of things, because when you make money, when you want to make money being Asian, we have to make money. So to make money, be a doctor. I couldn't be a doctor because I hate the long terminologies. The next thing is being an architect. It was booming in Lebanon, so I did architecture. And that was one way to make money from design and art. And I made money. So my father was fulfilled and said, you know what, now I'm doing what I want. So by the age of 30, I'm not going to go on this personal level because I was turmoil there. But by the age of 30, I decided to change my life. I ended up being here as an asylum seeker by the age of 30. And I decided that it's going to be the start of everything new. So I went and did law, conversion year. And I did law, then I did photography, and then I had my break, divorce, and I met my lovely wife, Sue, over here. And I wanted to surprise Sue, so I went to the Newcastle College without telling her and did a massage course, but that ended up being a whole new business. And she was learning behind my back Arabic as well. So she was sneaking out in the evening. I said, where are you going? Says, well, she told me eventually, and it wasn't Arabic because it wasn't my accent. But I was always passionate and drawn toward design. So I went back into filmmaking, and I did a few films, and I won awards along the way, so in photography and filmmaking.
Excellent.
Here and abroad. But then it was painting what really caught me. When I see the watercolor becoming a painting, expressing, you write a word, but then you mesmerize with it, because the word goes beyond just one word. But then when you actually then shape it in a way that communicate on different level, because there's a visual part of it. So one of the things I do, for example, is I write the word silence, but in a way, the ink is everywhere. So there's no silence, and the painting itself is so loud, the word silence. And that's what I love about. It's the subtext, which we learn about the body language, about your appearances, about the statement you make with everything we do every day, whether we want it or not, whether we actually do it on purpose or not. But we make a statement every morning. So when you say, no, I can't be bothered today, and you end up being, don't look good, You're making a statement, whether it was cry for help or God knows what. You're making a statement every day. And that's what I love about the artwork and the colors and the imperfection of the lines.
Yes.
I was thinking about that because obviously there's an aspect of painting where you don't have, or maybe you do have full control. There's a sort of conversation going on with the paint, and
Yes.
you've also been working digitally, haven't you?
Yes.
And I wondered if that's a bit different way of working because you're working through the sort of
Well,
screen.
Working digitally, it's a tool. The whole thing about painting, which I love, is or it can be the lack of control. The mistake. I get asked this: what will happen if you make a mistake? And I'll say that means that place will, this painting will be even more beautiful, because there is no perfection. The perfection is Allah, is God. And then at the same time, working digitally when you have total control. That two things, to be able to do both, is actually fascinating. And the whole thing about art, which I do, and painting, which I do love, is actually, yes, you must learn the skill. You must learn how to draw. You must learn how to, because it'll make you, that discipline is great. But it also allows you, once you've learned the rules, it allows you to break the rules. And that's what I love too. So, I mean, my background is I'm a graphic designer. That's what I trained as. So that's why I'm able to do the digital work. But because I have the training in graphic design and with the painting, I'm able to hopefully, maybe the viewer will tell me otherwise, but I'm able to do both. And what I try to do also is break the rules in both, because that's where the beauty comes.
Thought what was also that sort of moves me on a bit to something I really wanted to ask you about from some things that you've talked about, how important it is in terms of mentoring people, which I think probably both of you sort of talk about. Maybe it happens in different ways, but I was really interested to hear about, you've talked a lot particularly about Muslim women artists and mentoring, and have you...
Well, the thing is, I mean, I in a way, this is quite a selfish thing that I, really have a yearning to do, and that is, I do not want to, inshallah, God willing, leave this world without a legacy. And what do I want my legacy to be? What do I want to do, which was difficult for me when I was going through the journey of being an artist? And that is the most difficult thing for me, was to be visible. As a woman, as an artist, as an Islamic artist. And this was quite an arduous, difficult, time-consuming, frustrating journey. And if I am today able to take the hands of these emerging artists and make a difference, and make Islamic art not be apart from the mainstream, but be part of the mainstream, that to me would be a job well done. And in that instance, I mean, we're now, I don't know whether this is the space to say it, but I am going to say it because I think it is important. And that is, the likes of MacFest, well done. These kind of things need to happen. But organizations like MacFest and like other organizations need to put their time, their effort, their money into Islamic art and be able to have a space or a venue or whatever that may be, to be able to showcase. Now, me, I'm an individual, and I'm lucky that I have fantastic friends who are supporting and understand where I'm coming from and where we are all coming from. And I'm in the process of setting up a venture that will address this, that will make Islamic art accessible, available, and enjoyed by everyone. And this is important.
Yeah. And do you think, is the UK particularly resistant, or do you show more of your work
I don't think
in other countries?
I do show my work globally. I don't think I wouldn't say that resistance is the right word to use.
Okay.
I think the problem is both within us as artists, as Muslim artists, because I think what we need to have is a collective, is speak with one voice, is have a body that will speak for us. We now have something called the Islamic economy. We are more than a fifth of the global population, right? And being more than a fifth of the global population means that we have a voice, okay? So what are we doing to speak loudly with that voice? I'm talking creatively as an artist. We're not visible. That's the biggest thing. So that is a problem that we have to address from within. Outside of this, organizations, galleries are not really searching, looking to find Islamic artists. So would I say it's resistance? I don't think it's resistance. I think it's just not knowing. So, I mean, really, I hope that this is, I'm very, very excited for the prospect. I'm very excited about the future. I can see what's happening globally. I can see what's happening in the Middle East in terms of Islamic art in Dubai and various places. And I can see that they want to see Islamic art. I had a small exhibition. I'm sorry, I'm just keep on blabbering about it.
Well, I'll let Richard have a little word.
Just very quickly, we had a small exhibition which Richard participated in as well in Brent Cross. And the response from the general public was fantastic.
Wasn't small, by
So
the
there
way.
is a need, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There is definitely a need.
Yeah.
So, collectively we need to make it happen.
Yeah. Richard, do you want to?
Yeah, you talked about a really good point. So the thing is, for all the creatives out there, this is a word from Uncle Richard.
Love it.
We'll have to learn. You'll have to learn. You never take the keys and go drive the car like Uncle Richard did when he was 14 and have an accident with 3 cars. It wasn't in the UK, by the way. You'll have to learn. True story, by the way. You'll have to learn. And then, once you learn driving, then you take the car anywhere you want. Once you learn how to use your tools, then you take your brushes anywhere. Once you learn how to write, then take your pen anywhere. But you'll have to learn. And then you break the rules. And one of the things interesting, you were talking about how we should have collective voice. And one of the ventures that's coming, and we're excited about it, it's happening because we have a person who have a very good sound mind, business-wise, on his head. Thank you, Muhsin. Big shout to you.
Him there.
Muhsin Patel, just to be clear. Because he can take it forward. The thing is, wherever you want to go, it's good about saying, I'm not going to follow the trails of others and I'm going to make my own trail. But guess what? Streets still require lots of logistics. Lots of planning, lots of doing, lots of maybe boring, strenuous, routine jobs before you actually have a road that you can take the cart with. So being an artist, sometimes you need the assistant of the business side to be able to make money, then to be able to produce more. Otherwise, you'll end up chasing the money and then not creating artwork. Yeah. You still need that business side, and some of us doesn't have that. I mean, I'm lucky because part of my education, I did architecture, and part of it is we create design, but we still have to be project managers. So you'll have to keep a realistic approach about how can I deliver this crazy design and build it and erect that building somewhere. I still have to think of all the logistics. So I came already into art knowing how can I approach it, and I keep that in mind. So I'm never a diva, I'm an artist and God knows what. Because you'll have to think about business-wise, how can I deliver it, how can I make money? It's reality, I have to pay the bills. How can I can't go and say, oh, you know what, I appreciate my art, and I have to sell it. Well, you don't have to sell it, you have to make initiative there. And yes, I believe there's no mistakes, there's no accidents, everything. It's in us, we try to make an order of something, we try to make understanding, or we try to talk about the God's plan or the conspiracy theory. But I believe there's no mistakes because every accident happened with you. It's a challenge. But then how can you convert that? Hassan Masoudi have a very interesting approach when he creates artwork. He goes into his studio, starts doing creating calligraphy, and he's a very, very good calligrapher. I think he's the father of modern calligraphy because he learned painting and then approached calligraphy with painting, and he was great there. And he's still going. But one of the interesting principles, when he paints, now he, as the architecture of that painting, he knows there's a line somewhere that's not in harmony with the rest of the painting. So he make it again, and again, and again, and again. And might end up having a 20 painting before he eventually said, yes, I'm happy with this one. But he put all the 20 on sale. Now, my philosophy is the imperfection in the painting corresponds with your own imperfection. We're not perfect.
No.
We're far from perfect. And we know that. I mean, we hide it behind paint, behind clothes, behind social veil, but we know we are imperfect. We know we are vulnerable at some point and somewhere. And sometimes that painting, with its imperfection, it corresponds with us and resonates with us. And this is something artists sometimes don't understand, that imperfection, because it's about showing the best of it. It's like having your children for Eid, and you dress them to the best behavior, and you never really, shout at them in front of people. But when you go home, they'll have the smacks. I had loads of it as a kid. But it's about this showing that best of the version. I do believe that we need to be the best version of ourselves, but I also believe that we shouldn't be ashamed of our imperfection. And I hope that the artwork corresponds on that level as well.
Well, it was interesting. You were showing me one of the small painting in the gold with the
Yes.
and how you admitted.
Yeah.
Said there was a sort of smudge, so you then started to paint over that, and then a whole new
Yes.
painting had come from that, and how actually those accidents and imperfections open up all sorts of avenues that you've never thought of, that they're so important creatively, don't they?
It's like I have sometimes my father's voice or someone else, but even as a mentor. So when your students come to you and says, oh, I have this, it's ruined. All right, how can we work with it? If you approach it as a challenge, how can you approach it? So I was saying to Liz that I made this painting, and it's a painting of Al-Qudus. And I'm always conscious when I'm painting Al-Qudus because of all the pain and agony that actually present. And there's always a problem, if you want to call it a problem, when I paint Al-Qudus. There's always a problem. It never works. It's like when I sometimes paint my own daughter name, it never works because there's lots of emotions there and they interfere. So almost like I want to control something. So when I paint Al-Qudus, there's always a mistake. So I was painting Al-Qudus, the idea in my head, the sketch that I have in my sketchbook is I'm going to have a pink background, and the dome of the Qudus is gold, and I'm going to put some golden accents around it. And then I smudged the painting. Keeping in mind, I'm an architect before I'm being a painter, and one of the rigid training we do is never smudge your artwork, your plans. And I used to actually draw the plans with a hand. So I have really rigid training there, but I smudge it. So I start hiding it. Sorry, not hiding it. I thought, well, it's a challenge, so let's work with it. So I created a line, and the line continued and continued and continued, and then the whole painting had circles around it in gold. And that now end up 2 layers, because you still see the pink, but the gold around it. Now my philosophy, this is the people who love Al-Qudus. The true people, the genuine people who love Al-Qudus, because to me gold, I represented many paintings as genuine people, gold being the finest metal. So this is the people. And then I added more lines. But there's another thing about it. But it's about working with challenges. Because that's what we also teach our children. When a child comes to you with a problem and says, this is a problem, this is a brick wall, I would never live behind it, because the one I love never now doesn't speak to me. I said, okay, how can we deal with it? It's a challenge. And that's how I deal with artwork.
Before we sort of ask if anyone wants to ask anything from the audience, I just wondered if there's things that you're seeing out in the world that excite you, that other artists are doing, or it'd be really great to, share any of those. I know this was a surprise question that I haven't prepared you for.
Oh,
but,
no problem.
Yes, Liz gave us the questions.
That's the most important thing, isn't it? Surprise us. Richard.
Thank you, but I insist.
Or we can give you time to think about it and ask.
No, I'm happy to answer.
Let me tell you what excites me.
Okay.
What excites me is there is some really beautiful art out there, Islamic art. But what really excites me is the change of attitudes of probably parents who might think it's okay to let their children do art as a career. That excites me, because what's going to happen there is this new breed of people who will come out and think it's okay to be an artist, and that will change attitudes, and that will change the Islamic art world. That's what excites me.
And is that, if it's that specifically, when you were developing your own sort of career as a painter, did you find those kind of sort of barriers, not just with your parents, but with people sort of saying what?
When I was doing art, because I'm the grandmammy of Islamic art, because of my age, it was not the done thing. It was, maybe you couldn't be a doctor or a pharmacist or a lawyer, whatever. So art was seen as if, well, you can't be very clever. That's why you're doing art. And it was kind of working against the grain. It's that attitude. You always. So I didn't go into art thinking I'm going to make a career of it. Right? And things will change when we will have the next generation who will think that I am going to make a career of it. Yeah, that to me would be a win.
Yeah. Okay.
The thing is with art, there have been studies. I don't claim that I present this knowledge. I've read this. And there were studies to say, art is needed to be a part of the curriculum. And there's been studies to prove that the government, when they push for more math and science, they're actually losing. They're actually losing when they don't push for art as well. Because art is not just in the classical form of painting. Art is also design. So when Apple designed the iPod, there was art there. And Northumbria University is very proud that the one part of the team that designed the iPod is actually graduated from Northumbria University, and they're now big in design. Calligraphy is art, but making the cars is art. Carlos Ghosn, who was the president and the CEO of Renault and Nissan, he actually pushed big time for art. Apart from conversation, said they don't need much to actually be support, it's a little to us, but he acknowledged that we need the art in the car. Why? Because 65% of the decision makers of buying the car is actually female. And the females, when they look into the car, they don't know about the technicality of from 0 to 100. They don't know about the technicality of the suspension, about the engine, about these. They don't know that. They look inside the car.
I'm a bit of a boy racer. They do.
They look inside the car and see how beautiful it's inside, how comfortable it is inside, how its functionality is inside, and then safety for children.
Yeah.
One extra thing here for the females as well. I said it was actually the females who created the trend of the 4x4 cars, because they felt protected in the big cars, and it became a trend where then now men have those big cars, but actually it was the females who created that. So that's an extra thing. What I'm excited about? I'm always excited. I'm excited that I had today a conversation. Yesterday, my friend here, Kamil there, the Afghani guy, Kamil, the Afghan, Kamil, he helped me yesterday, taking stuff out. I had a nice conversation with him. And he's an artist, to be honest, because once he finished, I didn't ask him. He tidied the car for me. I said, well, thank you. I didn't need to. Jamila, I had a conversation with her earlier about mental health, but she's approaching in a way art. Kaisara, I mean, she created this, and it's an art in itself to actually create all that. Muhsin, who's a business manager for this new venture, but he's an artist in his approach. His wife, Asma, yes? She's an artist. Art is around us. So when I did the painting, Love Actually is everywhere. It's also art. It's everywhere around us, if you see it. Mm-hmm. And that's what it excites me. It excites me also that we are part of an era where art is not classed to be anymore is a degree for the dump, for thick. You don't have to have much of a high score in your GCSE or A levels to go into art. And it's being acknowledged. I'm excited that now we have PhDs practice-based, because then you can go to that, and we were having that conversation. You don't have to actually sit down and write this long thesis, which nobody actually would read it, to have a high acknowledgement within your trade as an artist. You can be practice-based. It's exciting. Mm-hmm. Exciting that we have the dual identity, because for long years, back in the days when Yemenis and Pakistanis and Caribbean came over, and they struggled with the dual identity. They've struggled big time. They didn't know where to go. I came here as, let's say for a Pakistani, where they came over here, and I have certain culture that I have to abide with, because that's how I'm geared, that's how I'm actually formed. And they didn't know what to do. Created lots of issues of loss of identity. But now we are at an age that we can celebrate this dual identity with art as well, like any other thing. And this is really exciting. Thank you.
Thank you. Not sure about the car. Do we have any, does anybody want to ask any questions? Yes. I have to do it quite loudly, so if it's possible.
Sorry.
If you want to say it and then I'll say it loud. Oh, have we got it?
There's a microphone.
Do you find any resistance between traditional media and digital media?
Yes. There is a kind of a misconception that if it's digital, it can't be very good. If you are able to do digital work that is not taking, this is going to sound awful, but it's not a cut and paste, right? If you are able to create art, it doesn't matter if you're going to do it with a digital board, on a canvas, or actually, when you're on the beach on sand. So it's not really the tool. It is that creation of something that has a little bit of heart, that says something more than just I'll take a clip art from here and a clip art from there, I'll put it together, and there you have it. So unfortunately, digital art has a bad name, because there's a lot of art out there, digitally produced, that does not require you to have too much imagination to look into it. Yeah, you could easily copy and paste it and create art. I'm not criticizing it, but I'll leave your own thoughts into this.
The thing is with digital, it's like the whole process of art. The whole landscape of art. So we were talking about just earlier how art is not just the classical style of it in terms of paintings. There's also the wordsmith. There's the own cookery. Art is in everywhere. Now, definitions are important because they kind of give you shape to what's already been known, but the clear shape. And Vasari in the 1700s, he was himself an Italian multidiscipline artist. And he was the first historian in history that he would actually document art. And he wanted to come up with a definition. What distinguishes an artist from a craftsman or a craftsperson? So the definition was a craftsman who is very good at his trade. An artist who is creative in his trade. Now, once you apply that definition, then you can apply it anywhere. Julia Cameron teaches creativity, and she's based in America. She teaches all around the world. And she applies that principle. So she can teach creativity to a banker, teach it to a lawyer, teach it to anybody from any discipline, because it's never about your tool, it's about your mind. The tool is just a tool that you use to express what you want, and depends what you want. Now, from there, you can then say, okay, digital can be also creative. Now, there's logistic issues with digital, because with the classical type of art, let's say a painting, you have the painting, you get it. So if you buy a painting for 100,000, for 200,000, for 1,000, you have that item with you, and then you keep it. And that's the logistic issue with digital. And that should not distract it from the fact it's still art. And some people, one Spanish photographer, I don't remember his name now, have solved that issue somehow. So he actually sold the photo and say, I will only print 200 of it, and then I will sell. It's a photo. It's beautiful, people engage and want to pay for it, but say, I will only print 200 of it, and then I'll stop there. There will be 200 versions of it in the world. So that's the logistic issue, but it's still an art.
Do we have any more questions?
Sorry if it didn't entice you enough to actually think about the question. Go on, yes? The microphone.
There's a lady.
I missed out on the beginning when you were talking about walls, and I wanted to ask Siddiqa and Richard, how would you comment on the walls being built in Germany, in Jerusalem? I've been to that one, and the art on the walls is amazing. The bubble writing, beautiful. So, what's the relationship between walls and artists?
You want to comment?
I would say the walls in Jerusalem, in China, are put up actually as a barrier to one side to the other. When you can't break it down, you will have some sort of a way to kind of protest. So those sort of art, a lot of the time, are a way of protesting. But it is protesting in a very beautiful way. I mean, if you look at the painting, the work on the walls in Jerusalem are absolutely amazing. And you know, the people who are producing those paintings, or the people who are living on that side of the wall, are in dire straits. They are in a situation that is not acceptable. But what these artists have done, or what these people have said, is that we will not accept it. We will not allow someone to put up this grey monstrosity. We will make a change. And human life is such that when you are in a situation, you will do your best to change that situation. So in terms of the art that are put up on walls that are supposed to divide us, are, in my opinion, they are a beautiful way of protesting.
Yes. As I was saying earlier, wars originally were made to organize and protect. Now, you can take anything in the world, add to it a bad intention, and then turn up to be completely the opposite to it. So it was put with, I don't know about China, but I know about Jerusalem. It was put with bad intention, because I don't agree anyway with the whole concept of Israel in terms of it's illegal. No matter where I come from, the UN have deemed it to be illegal. So the whole entity. And we know about the history, how they moved from chunking from one piece to another. There's a history there. But if you want to think of Muhammad to be a scholar, so away from the Islamic connotation and what have you. So Muhammad the Prophet says, you'll have to make a stand. where you are, you still have to make a stand. So if you can, do it, change. So if you're walking down the street and you see something that's bad in the street, instead of cursing the people who actually did it, take it off, take it away from the street. And they put on it incentives to say that's a good deed, you'll get rewards for it. If you can't do something with your hand, if you can't change with your hand, change it at least with being verbal about it. Change it. And if you can't change it with your own words, at least your heart doesn't agree with it. So from that sense, people who are able to do something in terms of, well, I can't break that wall, but actually making a statement. So what's been built to symbol tyranny become actually a monument against them by putting that artwork, and it's collaborative because it's not just Muslims who actually made the artwork, it's people from around the world, and it becomes a statement anti that action. It becomes a statement from all over the world. People actually travel there, they paid money, they paid time, and time is your life. It's the most expensive currency, time. So they spend part of their lives to go there, risking it as well, to actually make a statement to say, not in my name, not on my watch. This is tyranny, and I'm making a mark to say this is not acceptable. And that becomes a symbol for anti-tyranny. Thank you.
I think on that note, I think maybe we have used the sort of time, and I think that's a really fantastic way to end the conversation of a very positive action that be taken and how art can speak,
Yes.
and how we can all express ourselves in forms and work together. So I'd just really like to thank Richard and Siddiqa again for
Well, thank
joining
you as
us.
well.
Thank you, Liz.
Liz
Thank
is
you.
a doctor and prominent doctor, and she have really high status. I'm honored that actually
Really
being
high.
questioned by Liz.
Thank
So
you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you for Kaiser and every volunteer who helped making this happen. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
And
please
thank you
make
for
sure
coming.
you see all the work displayed as well. It's
Yeah,
really
buy some of my artwork, support my children. No pressure.
Thank you.
Thank you,
very
everybody.
much.
Thank you. Thank you.